How's it going, guys? It's Harvey from Weather Storm 5000. Today is September 17th, 2019, on Tuesday night, as Tropical Storm Imelda formed out of nowhere. The National Hurricane Center earlier today was only giving it like a 20% chance of developing, but out of nowhere, the news came out, and the hurricane hunters flew into it and determined that there was just enough rotation and just enough convection and just enough wind surrounding that center of circulation to the point where it was classified into a tropical storm at 40 miles per hour, but now it has weakened to a tropical depression. It is now currently a 35 mile per hour storm, and it's dumping a lot of rain just around the Houston area and just south of that as well. You can see those heavy rain bands, very you could see all the yellows, all the thunderstorms developing right around the center of circulation. And what's interesting too is that you could kind of see the rotation right around here, as I would assume that the eye is just to the west of the Houston area, as this just came out of nowhere. That this upper level low for the past several days mostly had a slim chance of developing, but actually developed into something very last minute and made landfall in Texas. And you could see that this storm is very slow moving, so it isn't really moving very fast to the point where it wouldn't be much of a threat. It's actually moving quite slow and dumping a lot of heavy rain within inside these heavy rain bands, and due to that, we expect a possibly major flooding event for the Houston area, because 5 to 7 inches is expected over the next 24 hours, as this goes through Thursday, at the beginning of Thursday, the 0Z of Thursday on September 19th. You can see that the rain ranges from 5 to 7 inches. So the Houston area definitely could see some flooding over the next day or two. So if you live in the flood zones around the Houston area, make sure to prepare. Make sure to just do whatever it takes to prepare for a flood right around this area. Get sandbags if you need to. Move your car to a place where it wouldn't get flooded, and basic stuff like that. And you should be fine. And here's a current track of this. You can see the depression is expected to die out by Thursday time frame, as it moves more up north, and then it loses a lot of its water source from the Gulf of Mexico, where tropical cyclones need that warm water to continue to maintain the strength, but it won't do that as it moves more towards land and loses its water source, and a lot of friction in the ground will weaken these winds and will weaken the warm core, and as a result, this will die by the Thursday time frame. But other than Imelda, we have another tropical cyclone to watch, especially for the Bermuda area. We have Hurricane Humberto, which is now, interesting enough, major hurricane at 115 miles per hour, which I find very surprising because the wind shear surrounding this hurricane currently is very strong, and it's due to this slight dip in the jet stream that's pretty much dominating the mid-Atlantic and going just far south enough to where Hurricane Humberto was dealing with a lot of wind shear. But I don't think that the wind shear is at its worst just yet. I think the main core of this storm is still slightly out of the main wind shear, but I expect as the storm continues to move more towards the northeast, closer to the jet stream, the jet stream should be able to tear this hurricane apart and make it more clinically influenced rather than being mainly a tropical storm. And what I mean by that is that it's going to lose a lot of its tropical characteristics over the next couple of days. And as a result, it won't really strengthen as a tropical cyclone, but it's going to strengthen due to the instability that this jet stream will enforce upon the tropical cyclone. So I expect the millibar pressure to stay mostly the same, but the winds to weaken as the wind field grows larger and larger. And looking at the track of this, you could see that it's expecting to move out to sea. A couple of days ago, some meteorologists, including me, were talking about that there might be a slight possibility that the hurricane gets caught up into this huge ridge that was supposed to be centered over the eastern Canada region, but that threat seems to be non-existent at this point, as most of the computer models are agreeing that this jet stream dip is just strong enough to the point where the hurricane won't have a chance to turn back and get uncomfortably close to the west thanks to this ridge, as the weakness between this ridge and another ridge, which I think is called the Bermuda High, um, is is just big enough to where the hurricane will move out to sea. So I don't think the threat of this turning back to the west is exists anymore, which is definitely good news. However, the one island we need to watch is Bermuda, which is currently under a hurricane warning, as it's certainly possible that Bermuda can feel those hurricane force wind conditions as the storm moves closer and closer between the Wednesday and Thursday time frame. However, there's still a possibility that Bermuda only experiences tropical storm force wind conditions and not necessarily sustained, because as you can see, assuming the wind field of this hurricane stays the same till Thursday, by the time it reaches close to the in proximity to Bermuda, if it were to take that middle portion of the track, then Bermuda would miss out on the hurricane force winds. However, I expect that wind field to grow, especially on the southern side of the storm, because the winds are going from west to east, and the southern part of a hurricane of a northern hemisphere tropical cyclone also moves from west to east. So I believe that this wind shear will definitely help. Will widen the wind field of this storm, especially towards the southern side where the winds move from east to west. So even if it takes the middle part of the track, the wind field might just grow big enough to the point where Bermuda is in the hurricane force wind conditions. And I think that's the reason why the National Hurricane Center issued a hurricane warning for the island of Bermuda. So that's definitely something to prepare for in Bermuda. If you're scared of hurricanes like that, if the hurricane scares you that bad, because it's a major hurricane and you don't want to play with the major hurricanes, because if it goes to the southern part of the track, then we might see it near the eye wall of this storm go over Bermuda. So fly out if you need to for the residents in Bermuda, or prepare if you guys are stuck there. And I wish you the best for this upcoming hurricane. The best case scenario would be if if this hurricane takes a more northern track, but we'll see, because it could go anywhere between this code. But after Bermuda, we should see this storm pretty much just go out to sea, not really affecting anyone. But for any surfers interested in Canada and New England, maybe we will see those swells and those waves be a little bit higher, so it might be a good surfing weekend. But then again, if you guys go to the beach at this time just casually, be careful, because those rip currents could be a threat for Canada and New England. But other than Humberto, we also have Tropical Depression 10, which just formed in the middle of the Atlantic, and it's currently 35 miles per hour, moving west northwest at 10 miles per hour. And based off of the track, you can see that the National Hurricane Center expects this to strengthen into a hurricane, but at this point it should be mainly a weak hurricane, like category 1, maybe 90 miles per hour. But the National Hurricane Center expects gradual weakening. It won't rapidly intensify or rapidly weaken. They just expect a gradual increase in winds as the storm continues its trek on westward. And for the Caribbean islands, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, you definitely should be watching this, because if it takes the southern part of the track, you could experience hurricane force wind conditions. But it could go anywhere within the track. We still have to see, especially when we're talking 3 to 5 days out. There's still a lot of uncertainty with this. But for people in Florida, you may be thinking that, oh man, it's gonna hit right towards us. And also the Bahamas, which is under deep recovery mode at this point, especially in the Grand Bahamas. might be scared looking at this forecast track, but however, I wouldn't automatically assume that this may go um, directly to Florida, even if the forecast cone looks like it is, especially because the computer models are expecting this to turn northward just after 5 days. However, like I said multiple times, when we're talking about a storm 5 days out, or when we're talking about forecast 5 days out, I meant to say, things could get very uncertain. So I wouldn't assume that it's gonna turn up north either, or automatically predict that it's gonna turn up north either, because there's still a lot of uncertainty when talking about forecast track 5 days out. But we could at least be happy that there's at least agreement that that it may turn out to see like a lot of the computer models are agreeing on, and we hope that continues over the next several days. But these model forecasts tend to shift from day to day, so we'll have to see if that continues. And the factors that's going to be affecting it mostly is a weakness in the between the ridges of high pressure. That's one that's going to be centered right around here, and then one that's going to be centered right around southeast the United States, southeast of the United States. So we could see the GFS is predicting that this low pressure will be absorbed by this strong wind shear, and it'll be absorbed just enough to where it'll turn it back, and then it seems like this trough or this jet stream dip right here will then just absorb it and then suck it out to sea, which is definitely hopeful. But we're talking about over 5 days out, so we still have to see what definitive changes happen between these ridges of high pressure, because if there's a high pressure, if there's a ridge that builds strong enough just to the north of Tropical Depression 10, which probably would be a hurricane, which may be a hurricane at this point, then that's when I would maybe start worrying in the southeast, when because there's not really, if this high pressure builds to the north of it, there's not really much other ways this tropical depression could turn up north and miss Florida. But we still definitely have to see over the next several days. As for strength of this, you can see that the wind shear is relatively light ahead of it. It's going to be over warm water, so that both favors it. That both favors Tropical Depression 10 in terms of strengthening. But I think the reason why the National Hurricane Center and the computer models like the GFS are reluctant to really strengthen this much is due to the dry air that's ahead of it. And you can see those deep yellows. We have to see over the next several days if Tropical Depression 10 is able to survive the dry air that's ahead of it. But it may form a little bit of a shield itself, releasing a lot of, it may just be small enough to where it won't absorb much of the dry air around it. So we have to see. But when we talk about small storms, and it's definitely not easy to predict, but it's gonna be interesting to see how it deals with this dry air ahead of it. If it deals with it, then I would expect this to become a hurricane. If it doesn't, then this may fizzle out and maybe not become anything. But however, the National Hurricane Center is leaning more towards Category 1 strength type hurricane ahead. But we have to see if this is able to deal with that dry air. But anyways, guys, I guess I guess that's all I need to talk about for today. Thank you guys for watching. And make sure to tune in to to my next videos as always, and subscribe if you want more, and like this video if you like it, and as always, have a great day.